Welcome to Insight Driven Decisions, how leaders turn insight into strategic impact. Our goal is helping you move from insight to impact to action, and doing all this through decision-grade insights.
I have a dare for every corporate executive and business leader watching this right now. Go ahead. Fire your entire insights team. Cancel all your data partner licenses and relationships. Buy that $20 AI subscription. Hand it to that 22-year-old intern and pray to God it works. Because when that unsupervised machine hallucinates and drives your $20 million strategy off the cliff, there's no way to go for you. There's no plan B. Welcome to the show. I'm John Burshak, joined today by John Willie. Today we are your reality check. I get it. Every week you're told the lie that AI has completely democratized business insights. Well, Johnny and I live the data trenches. We use AI practically every day. Heck, we've run advanced models that literally break the machine's back-end infrastructure. We know its power, but we also know how dangerous it is when sold to you by people who don't care about your business. Today, we're sharing the in-the-trenches truths about AI and real-world decision-making, the good, the bad, and the absolutely ugly. Welcome back. I'm John Burshak. Most of my career has been spent outside of companies and working with all types and sizes of companies, from the biggest in the world, Amazons and Apples, all the way through to venture startups. My whole goal during those years and across all those companies, helping leadership teams design customer intelligence and insight that actually changes what happens in the business and real-world success measures. John, over to you for your introduction there.
My name's John Willie, and I've spent most of my career on the client side, actually, primarily in media, doing research, audience analytics, marketing insights, and everything else. So John and I covered both sides of the fence.
Today, let's start with the good of AI. Give me some examples from your perspective on the inside, and when did you really start thinking and realizing this is a completely different beast than other things that we've heard about in the past?
One of the things that I have heard many, many times over my career has been, you know what? We need you guys to spend more time doing big picture thinking. What can we get off of your plate so that you guys can spend time on the important stuff instead of doing the day to day? Can we get rid of this report? Can we stop putting this out? And what AI has done is it has proven itself to be a useful tool to actually be able to take care of some of the day-to-day stuff and definitely free up people to do some bigger picture thinking more of the time, so that I don't have a bunch of drones sitting around doing drudge work all day. It allows people to develop more quickly their skills and their abilities because they are spending more time applying their mental capacities to bigger picture thinking rather than just keeping their nose to the grindstone.
In the outside world, I'm thought of two specific examples as you were talking about the good. When I think of where is AI actually moving the needle for us, there's two main ways. One is really like you're right, you don't want the drudge work, you don't want the drone work. And it really comes into the first one that has been around actually a lot longer than even AI is getting credit for, but it's this whole raw text, raw sentiment analysis. Today, it's practically free. You can run open source models right now on your laptop, completely offline and completely secure. So the real world impact, when you think about it, it's just been absolutely insane. We can take a study with tens of thousands of verbatim or open-ended customer questions where they're just writing in whatever they're feeling about whatever it is you're asking them. And that stuff, especially at a big size study, that used to take an analyst or several analysts weeks of drone drudgery, mind numbing, reading and coding, and to crunch the numbers. Now the patterns are recognized, and the crunching of those numbers to get them to a certain point takes a couple of days. But we found there's still, I think you kind of alluded to it, there's still that catch, right? So our catch that we found, and this is no vendor wants to admit this to you, but for that type of sentiment textual analysis, AI alone hits a ceiling at about 68%. We've done this over studies for years. That's as high as we can get it. And what that means is after the initial setup that you're talked about, actual prompting, that machine gets about 68% of the context done completely and correctly. And the other percentage, it misses sarcasm, it misses industry nuance, it misses, or it can completely misinterpret the human emotion behind the text. So yes, it saves us weeks on the front end when we're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of verbatims, but to get real insights a VP can actually sink their teeth into and make a decision on, I still have to bring in our linguistics experts and they double check the machine's homework. They finish the remaining percentage that AI leaves on the table for you. But it gets you to the 50-yard line. There's another way that is really interesting. This is where we're pushing the tech, and we've literally found its breaking point. Another thing they don't tell you, it will break. This is not something that just goes, it's eternity in your hands. It's not that. There is an end point to what it can do. We found it on the quantitative side. So historically, we do a bunch of deep analysis. We get to the understanding of behind an underlayment of what really is being there from the quantitative answers for market opportunities. We don't just look at the obvious percentages that everybody else does. We layer of 5 distinct statistical techniques over the data. In the past, we've always done it using statistical software like SPSS or SAS. So when we first started testing those advanced AI algorithms and methods with the AI tools, we wanted to see if they could replicate it. And I can remember I mapped out my first proprietary model, and it was a massive multi-layered logical prompt. We fed it into the AI. I hit run or whatever the arrow is down at the bottom, went to grab a coffee, came back. There was a dead screen, error code. The back end architecture literally had thrown its hands up in the air. The error message said, I cannot process logic this deep. Is there anything simpler I can help you with today? It completely quit. So I fired up a different AI tool. I thought, well, maybe it's just this one. Same thing happened. Another one, same thing happened. And that's how we discovered exactly where these tools can suffer a complete analytical blackout. They cannot handle multi-layered, sophisticated business logic, especially statistics, out of the box. They absolutely cannot. But a craftsman, which I like to think I am on the stats side, we didn't give up. I kept working backward, testing and tweaking the model until I figured out how to translate the process into a framework that AI could understand and execute. And I'm happy to say we cracked the code. But again, it's required me, if I should say it, as a master craftsman on the statistics side. We already knew the math, and we had to teach the machine how to do its job so it could.
What you're talking about has been my experience with all of the AI agents that I've used so far. And I was thinking about this earlier. The analogy I came up with was it's like a puppy that's so very eager to please. And they go, this puppy is going to be great. This dog is just wonderful and great companion and do everything you want.
Yeah.
And you come home and just runs in circles, jumps up on you, chews up the sofa cushions and gets all the filling all over the carpet, pees on the carpet.
Yeah, we know that dog. Yeah, we do.
We know that dog, right? The dog with training will respond to your prompts, right? The dog is a good dog if you put in the time. You have to teach it what you want, when you want, and which prompt it is to respond to. But left to its own devices, the dog is going to chew on the furniture and, bark endlessly and do all kinds of other crazy stuff. AI is a terrific tool. It requires human thought leadership. That's been my experience. That's my belief until somebody can prove me differently. Otherwise, a lot of times the intelligence that it does generate is indeed artificial.
Yeah, very much so. In fact, we'll get to a couple of examples that are just pure artificial, and that's in the ugly. But before we get there, let's talk about the bad.
Recently, we've been utilizing it to craft responses to, say, customer concerns or customer complaints, customer questions. But the one thing that it does is it has drawn inferences which are not necessarily incorrect, but it phrases it in such a way that presented to the client without any editing, the client misreads it. And so without actually putting the human editing to it before just pushing it out as finished product, it can create more havoc. It can basically make a problem go further rather than just be concluded.
I think I've got an example. So, current client, they came to us after they basically, as they called it, they chased a ghost segment, and they thought it was a multi-million-dollar new segment in their industry. I mean, we've all met the executive that goes, "Tell me where's that untapped market? Where's that unmet need? Hey, AI will find it for you." And that's exactly what it did for these guys. They had thrown just a bunch of behavioral and demographic data. They put it into an AI model, and they asked that question. The executives did, is find me that unmet need. And AI, well, what do you know? Came back. It got really creative. That little puppy dog came back with a bone in its mouth going, I've got the perfect untapped market for you. And on paper, it was a gold mine. And they actually greenlit the VP of marketing $20 million just for a targeted ad spend. They did a product variant. The result was complete radio silence. So what had happened was it found an anomaly, and there was a phantom buried in the data, and it treated the noise of that correlation as a profound human truth. And it didn't understand just because the data points may have sat next to each other, somehow been related correlationally. That doesn't mean real humans will actually behave that way. And it confused the noise for the signal. Another example like this from agencies, this one is an agency. They replaced real human feedback with synthetic AI respondents, and that's always going to end well for you. They tried to stimulate a focus group of 5,000 Gen Z tech buyers, and they were testing major new brand positioning. And the AI personas, they gave this concept rave reviews, calling the messaging authentic and disruptive. And of course, agencies love that. And they launched the campaign. And then the real Gen Zers instantly memed it to death for being out of touch, corporate, cringe-worthy. The brand took a massive brand equity hit, and the marketing director now, I think he's gone through 2 quarters trying to do damage control. And it gets to what you just mentioned. AI doesn't have feelings. It doesn't have emotion. It doesn't have heart. It has training data, tells it how to answer you. And honestly, it's in some cases just regurgitating the latest cliches back to you that it thinks you want to hear. So the whole idea of testing AI-generated concept with AI-generated consumers, it's like a technology echo chamber, and you get what you pay for that.
So I'm just going to run us to the ugly. I actually came up with this. It was the KPMG report, right?
Yeah.
25. They used AI to generate the report. Later, there is a function that goes through and checks AI generated reports to see if they are in fact factual. 40 out of 45 citations in the report were completely fabricated or just complete bullshit. And all of the companies that it referenced in these case studies, or for quotes, said, this is absolutely untrue. And so KPMG wound up having to pull back the report. They've got egg on their face. It looks terrible. They asked AI to create a report on the benefits of AI. And what did AI do? Of course, it came up with stuff, but it made stuff up.
Yep.
But before we got on this call together, I was looking it up. This has also happened twice to Deloitte in both Australia and in Canada. Yeah. Deloitte did it once, and it had to do with the legal system in Australia, making up quotes from judges and attorneys and making up verdicts that never really happened. And in Canada, it had to do with a crisis I think it had to do with the nursing and medical shortages that were happening in a particular province in Canada. And it was a $1.6 million contract that was complete BS. Oh, wait, there's more. Here's Ernst & Young Canada. Points of attack, uncovering cyber threats and fraud in loyalty systems, littered with AI hallucinations. 70% of the citations in the report were broken, misattributed, or entirely fabricated. Invented data, non-existent publications, and reports from major firms like McKinsey. The report relied heavily on chatbots without undergoing necessary human verification or peer review. So there's Ernst & Young, KPMG, and Deloitte. And let's face it, there's reputational damage for all. I mean, there's actual financial damages to all of them. So it will tell you whatever you want to hear to make you love it.
The Harvard study, they proved that it reads your intent by the order in which you put in your request. So the order itself will tell it what it thinks that it should respond to. And every model, they tested it with the exact same prompts. You just change the order. It all of a sudden is making an algorithmic guess at what it thinks you want to hear back, and then framing its response that way. The AI is lying to you if you don't know that it is. It's not a truthful thing. It doesn't care about the truth. It's basically an absolutely flawless liar. It's the best liar you'll ever meet.
There is a thought process that's happening on the corporate side throughout the country and in all sectors, which is that AI can replace your human resources. If you are an executive and you truly believe that your staff is replaceable by AI, then you probably have a less than capable staff. Truly. Because the thing is if you want people that you don't think are good to train AI, they're just going to train AI to keep doing the job that they've been doing at a level that you think is subpar.
If you're going to replace people, maybe those people weren't that good in the first place. So what are you really replacing? If they're only doing what you fired, then you aren't getting anything out of it.
AI is a tool. AI can be a fabulous tool, an amazing tool. It can get you to the next important business decision in the value chain because it's able to do certain things more quickly. When we talked earlier about big picture thinking, and you and I have discussed this before, when you're talking about the AIM method, okay, part of it is collaborating with the client in order to identify and articulate the true business decision at hand and understand that the way that decision goes is likely going to trigger another decision down the road. What AI can do is help you get to that first question and answer and begin to already think about the next curve in the road, right? But it can only do that if it's worked properly, if it's managed properly, if it's led properly. You've got to put the guardrails on it. You don't want to be that guy that you were just talking about that went down after the dose segment and spent $20 million chasing vapor.
Nothing. You brought up AIM. I've actually had to think about AIM as an actual system, as an actual framework, as an actual step by step by step by step on the analytics side to get it to work. And then it does. But if I didn't know my own system and just said, hey, run this, let's say it's a regression, run this regression, give me some of the relationships from the dependent variable to independent variable list, right? Okay, so it can come back and it'll do that. And then I say, well, show me your work, because I found out that's really important. Let's have a chat over your work. And it will show me its work. And I go, why on earth did you use that form of regression for this type of a problem? That's known to be the worst one out there. And of course, then it does oh, you are so right. Oh, I'm so sorry. Would you like me to run it with this other way of doing it? But if I didn't know that you should be using a specific type of regression, I would have gone in with stuff that was crap. Literally.
I was just thinking that's the value add that you bring to the work that you and I partner on, right? Which is thinking about things from the client's perspective, thinking about what the true business decision is, and then being able now to utilize this new tool in the most effective manner possible. The critical part is the collaborative process that's part of AIM in order to actually make this tool work as it's meant to work. That's been your experience getting AI to learn that layering, that process that you just described, frees you up to spend more of your time in the more valuable steps of the process, which is the big picture thinking, the strategic thinking, and not so much having to sit there and code out the regression analyses anymore. AI can do a lot for you, but garbage in, garbage out.
If you're an executive listening to this, definitely please make sure you have the human expertise to know when it's garbage out, because you're going to get garbage out. Data sets.
Everything has to be.
Everything has to be checked. I wanted to get back to the legal thing that you led in with, and that is litigation research, which is actually one of the most stringent fields out there in terms of the research. You have to be absolutely spot on everything. Why? Because you're handing everything, survey, data file, not just a report, survey, data file, all of your visuals, everything is going over to an opponent who's going to hire a room full of PhDs to pick you apart. That's their whole job. That's what they get paid for. And so here's my story of the ugliness. It was in California. It was a lawsuit. A plaintiff sued this premium French jam company because some of the product was actually made in Belgium while the advertising kind of indicated France origins. So the plaintiff, they went research, did what every amateur that we've been talking about does today. They used a quick AI automated survey tool, and they I'm using scraped up, an imaginary 442 person consumer perception survey. And then they wrote a report, and they submitted their report, and it was one sexy metric that they were really focused on. And it was, well, magically, 59% of these people thought it was made in France, this one claim, while less than 9% thought the product was actually made in Belgium. And the judge said, no, time out, not so fast. Where's your evidence? Well, there were no questionnaires. There were no controls able to be produced. There were no anything, responses in a data file. There were no visuals that could be shown. Now you have the plaintiffs and their attorneys caught flat-footed. This is a bald-faced lie, and they just used a tool to give the illusion that it was truth. Anybody can do this. You can create exactly what you want in a report. They did. And it was done knowing it was a lie. There was no survey that was actually done. There were no real consumers. The judge gave him a strong warning and then laughed him out of court in front of God and everyone. His explicit ruling, I got it right here, percentages standing alone are not plausibility. A survey is evidence, and as such has to be supported with provable, meaningful, and correct details. It has not, cannot, and never can become a talisman. Now, that should be a starting point for every business executive listening to this, or leader as well, right? I mean, that's a true story. Millions are on the line with a real world legal decision, and the difference between buying a tool and hiring a craftsman. And as we've talked about, that's what we call decision grade intelligence. So when you hire Bershak to be your AI agent, and we're a human agent, but AI is our specialty, you aren't paying for us to just hit generate on a survey or an analytical model. You're paying for the expertise that ensures your data can survive the scrutiny of a federal judge, a skeptical board of directors, or a $20 million, $50 million, $100 million product launch. We are the bridge between the gap of AI speed and human expertise and precision. Anything to add to that, John?
That wraps it up. That is exactly correct.
Awesome. All right. Well, again, as we started with AI, we think is great. Please don't just buy the tool. Hire the craftsman who knows how to drive it. And Bershek, we're here. We can be your AI agent. We get you to the insights faster, cleaner, and with the strategic depth you actually need to de-risk your big decisions. So if you're interested in getting guidance for your business decisions, send an email to me at john@bershekresearch.com or let us know your thoughts in the comments here. We'll see you on the next episode.